Hi, I'm Diana Pierson, and you are in the know with the schedule. Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Schedule. April is packed with fights between some of the top fighters in the sport. Every network is in action this week, and as always, DAZN is leading the way with 6 fight cards this month. This month has some pound-for-pound action on the men and the women's side. On the women's side, Claressa Shields versus Christina Lady Hammer look to unify the middleweight division. And on the men's side, Vasily Lomachenko fights Anthony Crolla, and Terrence Crawford fights Amir Khan on an ESPN pay-per-view. Who would have imagined that Fox and ESPN would be having pay-per-view boxing fights just a year ago? On Friday, April 12th, there are a lot of fights, but none more important than Best in Boxing broadcast live from Big Punch Arena in Tijuana, Mexico. Who wants to see Lomachenko, who is also fighting on the 12th, when you know he's going to win? You need to tune in and watch young, hungry fighters that we have on Best in Boxing. Now repeat this after me. I need to watch Best in Boxing. I need to watch Best in Boxing. I will watch Best in Boxing. Now, in the main event, Roberto the Ram Mesa takes a big step up in his career and faces a veteran, Angel Viedas. Viedas is 23-9-1 and miles above Roberto's past caliber of fighters. This should be a great main event, so you don't want to miss it. And we're excited to have 5-time world champion Karina Moreno back on the broadcast as she takes on Cynthia Martinez. This will be Karina's second fight back from retirement. Other notable fighters on the card, Mario Güero Ramirez returns to Best in Boxing, and we have some heavyweight action with American Big George Thompson. He takes on Alejandro Garduño. George is the type of fighter Best in Boxing was designed for, as he's had trouble getting fights on other shows. We stay in Mexico for the Marcos Villasana Jr. versus Romain Villa fight, which will be broadcast from Los Mochis and broadcast on Fox Deportes. This is being dubbed as Mexico versus Venezuela and is being promoted by 2M Productions out of Mexico. Next up, one of the best fighters in the world, Vasily Lomachenko, squares off against Anthony Crolla for Vasily's WBO, WBA lightweight titles. Crolla is a WBA mandatory challenger, and in recent interviews, Vasily revealed he is looking to unify lightweight division with fights against Mikey Garcia, who holds the WBC title, and Richard Comey, who holds the IBF title. If he unifies the titles, he plans on moving back down to super featherweight, a weight he feels is more natural. Also on the card, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez versus Tommy Karpency. This will be Gilberto's first fight at light heavyweight, as he was having trouble finding fights as a super middleweight champion. It really is too bad that we couldn't see him go up against the top super middleweights in the world as they fight on other networks. Gilberto has a lot more options as light heavyweight, as Top Rank has a lot more access to fighters in that division. One more notable fight on the card is the fight between Arnold Barbosa and former world champion Mike Alvarado. Mike has been quietly making a comeback under the guidance of matchmaker Brad Goodman, but it looks like it's time for Mike to take a step up again and take on the hard-hitting Arnold. We wish Mike all the best as he is in for one tough fight. One last card on April 12th is happening in Hampton, New Hampshire with the fight between Derek Silveira and Roberto Valenzuela Jr. This should be a great fight as Roberto is 14-0 with 13 knockouts at only 19 years of age. All these KO artists coming from Mexico, there must be something in the food. I don't know, what's in those tacos? Now, there's no broadcast information for this fight, which is too bad as it should be a good fight. April 13th, Fight Night kicks off with 2 of the best female boxers in the world, Claressa Shields against Christina Hammer on Showtime. If you watch only one fight this weekend, this is the fight you watch. And if you call yourself a boxing fan, this is the fight you do not miss. This fight is the first 4-belt unification bout in women's middleweight history, and the winner will join current undisputed women's welterweight champion Cecilia Bracaus, along with current and former men's champions Terrence Crawford, Jermaine Taylor, Bernard Hopkins, Alexander Usyk as the only fighters to hold all 4 recognized titles in the same division. This fight is a massive fight for boxing history, and you should not miss it. You have the number 3 pound for pound versus the number 4 pound for pound fighting. Now, you don't see that on the men's side anymore, so that's right, I'm calling out all you pound for pound men. Look what the ladies are doing, making you guys just look foolish, taking all your mandatory and your tune-up fights. So you have IBF, WBA, WBC, WBO titles on the line, and history to be made for these women. And also on the card, you know what? No, it doesn't even matter who else. Just watch this fight. So let me get a whoop-de-whoop for the ladies. DAZN has Jaime Munguia back in action against Dennis Hogan. Munguia is putting his WBO junior middleweight title on the line. Dennis is a mandatory, but this fight is really a foregone conclusion unless Dennis gets lucky. Maybe on a night that there were no other fights to watch, but this fight is way down on the list with pound-for-pound action going on Showtime. Also, on April 13th, Caleb Truax takes on Peter Quillen on Fox Sports 1 and Fox Deportes. These two former sparring partners will be all business on April 13th. Peter's looking to get his career back on track with a must-win for him at this point. Caleb is familiar with spoiling the party as he is known for his upset win against world champion James DeGale. This should be a good fight by two fighters hungry to stay relevant. PBC cards always have a ton of fights, and this one is no exception with 11 fights on the card. Fans have a lot of boxing action to enjoy with a lot of young prospects on the card. Now, the new norm in boxing seems to be putting big-name fighters on different networks at the same time. April 20th is no exception, with Crawford and Danny Garcia both fighting, and DAZN, ESPN, and Fox all going on April 20th. You guys think this is good for boxing or bad for boxing, having all the networks fight on the same night? First up, ESPN pay-per-view is in action with Terrence Crawford versus Amir Khan. There seems to be a lot of mixed feelings about this fight, but there's one thing for sure: when Amir Khan fights, you know there's going to be a knockout. Either way, we don't expect this to go to the scorecards. Normally, pay-per-view undercards are afterthoughts, but this card has some good fights on it, and we are looking forward to seeing Shakur Stevenson fight against tough Christopher Diaz. Teofimo Lopez, an amazing fighter, against Eddie Thiatli, who is no slouch. He is not well known, but is well ranked in Europe, and this should be the toughest fight for both fighters. Finishing off the pay-per-view, Felix Verdejo takes on Brian Vasquez. Verdejo came into boxing with a lot of support and a bright future. After losing his first fight last year, he is looking to back on track, and it looks like Top Rank is wasting no time by putting him up against a tough veteran and former champion Brian Vasquez. It looks like it's sink or swim time for Felix Verdejo. As always, Top Rank streams their undercard, and now with their ESPN deal, they'll have the fights on ESPN+. At the same time, in Carson, California, PBC on Fox is in action with the return of Danny Garcia against Adrian Granados. Danny Garcia is at a crossroad in his career after 2 championship losses to Thurman and Porter. He needs a win to stay relevant in the welterweight division. This will not be an easy fight for Danny as he faces off against a tough veteran, Adrian Granados. It should be an interesting fight knowing what's on the line for Danny. Also on the card, Big Andy Ruiz versus Alexander Dimitrenko. This will be the first fight for Andy on his new 4-fight, $2 million contract with PBC. If you've not seen Andy fight, he doesn't look like a fighter, but he's unusually fast for a man of his size. He could put himself in a position as a possible Wilder opponent if he performs well over the length of his new contract. There are 10 more fights on the card, so plenty of fight action for fans in Carson. DAZN has a card in London, England, with Dave Allen versus Lucas Brown going at it. Dave Allen is a fighter that has been arguably mismanaged in his career and is looking to get back on a championship path. Lucas Brown will be a good test for Allen. Okay. Well, hello there. Now, I think this is the first time I've ever seen 3 fight cards on a Thursday night. And the first fight card is in Las Vegas with RGJ Promotions on UFC Fight Pass. In the main event, Connor Coyle versus Robert Burwell, and Florida-based Connor will make his RGJ debut after recently signing a contract with the promoter. RGJ Promotions seems to have a great little system to develop up-and-coming fighters with the backing and finances of the UFC. It's great to see smaller promoters getting the opportunity to showcase their fighters on such a great streaming platform. Next up, Golden Boy and DAZN are in action in India with the rematch between Steve Claggett and Yves Ulisi Jr. 18 months ago, Steve Claggett won a split decision over Ulisi. Ulisi has had 3 unanimous decision wins since his first loss, as Claggett has struggled with his first loss, 1 draw, and a win over the same time period. Both these guys' styles work well with each other, so we should have an action-packed main event on April 25th. In the co-main event, another rematch between Oscar Negrete versus Joshua Franco. And both these fights are worth the price of admission, so if you can't make it to Indio, you can stream it on DAZN. And we have to recognize anytime DAZN puts a good card together, as it's far and few between, so great job, DAZN. In Brasilia, Italy, Luca Rigaldi and Anthony Sital square off for the EBU Super Bantamweight title. This all-action fight would be great to watch, but there's no broadcast information for this fight. On April 26, DAZN is at it again with their best fight card to date. That's 2 big thumbs up for DAZN having 2 good matches in 1 month. Last time, Srisaske Sarang versus Juan Francisco Estrada fought was on HBO, and now with HBO Championship gone with the way of the dinosaurs, Rungvisai and Estrada are now under new contract with DAZN. The first one was great, but Rungvisai won the fight, and I can't see Estrada doing something new to beat Rungvisai, but we'll see. It should be a great fight nonetheless. In the co-main event, Danny Roman faces off against TJ Dueni in a unification for WBA and IBF Super Bantamweight World Championship. This is the biggest fight for both these fighters, and it could put them on a path for much bigger paydays. Also on the card, Jesse Vargas makes his 154-pound debut at 152-pound limit against Humberto Soto. After watching Humberto against Brandon Rios, it looks like he still has something left in his tank, and Jesse needs to be careful with the always dangerous Soto. Jesse has never been a fighter with a lot of power, so it should be interesting how he will look against bigger fighters. Although this fight has a 152 weight limit, this is a big step up in weight for Jesse. It seems from top to bottom, DAZN finally put together a great card. DAZN, not letting us get our hopes up too much, has another card in the same night in Florence, Italy, with Fabio Turchi versus Jean-Jacques Olivier in the main event. It's great that DAZN has been able to showcase many European fighters who've not gotten exposure before in the US. DAZN is broadcasting from Lafayette, Louisiana, bringing 2 title fights to Lafayette. In the main event, Karel Relic takes on Regis Prograis, and this fight is in the semifinals of the World Boxing Super Series and the WBA Junior Welterweight title. Relic will be defending his title, and this is the toughest test by far for Karel and Regis. Also on the card, Zolani Tete versus Nonito Donaire, as both fighters put their titles on the line. This is for the WBO, WBA Bantamweight titles and the World Boxing Super Series semifinals. There are 7 other fights on the card, so plenty of fight action for those in attendance. Finishing out the weekend, Showtime has a championship triple header. In the main, Robert Easter Jr. takes on challenger Races Barthelemy for the WBA regular lightweight title. Both these former champions are looking to make some noise in the lightweight division, so expect some great action in the main event. We'll have to see how Easter handles Barthelemy's awkward style. And in the co-main event, Victor Postol versus Mohamed Mamoun. And these tall, lanky junior welterweights lack true KO power, so expect this one to go the distance and be a tactical battle all the way through. Opening up the card is the fight between Efe Ajaba versus Michael Walish. And Efe is 9-0 with 8 knockouts, so expect some fireworks early as Michael has a 60% knockout percentage, so this one may not go the distance. This card is at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, and if you've not been to this hotel, you should make it out for these fights. This is a great hotel to stay and play in, as well as a great card for a nice weekend trip. Thanks for watching this month for your Boxing 411. This month of boxing has really heated up and is a great lead to a lot of fight action for the rest of the year. Next month, we have the Canelo Jacobs fight, and Triple G should be announcing his next fight soon. Boxing is more than healthy, as so many fighters are getting the exposure they deserve from ESPN, DAZN, Fox, and Showtime. So hats off to all these platforms and the fights they are bringing the fans. Hopefully step 2 of this new boxing landscape is getting cross-broadcast promotions so we can get more action fights. We'll be back next month with more fight information for all you boxing heads. For Global Sports Streaming, I am Diana Pierson, and you can follow me at diana.la.chicana on Instagram. Adios.